Welcome, everybody. Delighted that you're here. Moving forward from level to level in this conversation, this understanding, and this use of the tools based in first century Aramaic forgiveness is pretty awesome. Delighted that you're here to be part of it. I've been, we recently read through a definition I've been working on, attempting to describe the process of quantum still point, and have been interacting with the people that have taken through the process so far. And it's been interesting as it develops. And one of the things that I realized is that what we read last time was kind of a shorthand, and the conversations with several people about the processes led me to looking deeper into something that for me has been kind of short form, meaning that my explanation was really of a process that I've gone through over the last 50 years, and realizing that speaking about it from the point of view of having been there, done that, doesn't exactly explain it or educate others on what it really means or what's really happening. So I've been delving into a whole different level of understanding and working to be able to explain in a way that makes sense to somebody who hasn't done the 50-year journey that I have of just what the process is. So it's been kind of interesting and exciting, fun. Been working with a couple of different people and who've gone through the process and developing a way to educate others as to what it is. So working on that, I had thought after we read the other day that I was going to do it in a more meditative way, but that's not happening yet. It will come, but so that's one of the things that's up on my mind. Has been pretty much all-consuming over the period of the last several days. And other than that, I don't have a whole lot on my mind. We have been gone partway through an explanation of the work in some detail. But before we tap back into that, I'm going to ask Jeannie if we have anybody on the phone queue with a hand up or anything happening in the chat room. Any questions from the app or via email? Miss Jeannie.
It is all quiet on this end. No hands up, no questions in the chat room. So if someone has a question, press 1, and we'll get your question before Michael gets started in another direction.
Well, if we don't have anybody with a hand up, then let's move forward. So we've been leading up and going through kind of a synopsis of the process of forgiveness and an overview of the work. Go back to last Friday's show, that's where we started this, and then discussions has intervened, so didn't do a lot in between. We did cover some on this Friday again.
You actually have a hand up?
Oh, well, then let's talk to the hand. Awesome.
I believe that it's Audrey. Hi, welcome.
Hi. Hi.
Hey, welcome, dear heart.
Yeah, I'm sitting in a doctor's office tuning into you. It's so convenient to just tap in to your program wherever I might be. Question. Are you still on for 2 hours and the first hour is Dr. Tim? Because I kind of lost my direction here.
Okay. Well, yes, we are on Dr. Tim does the first hour from 11 until noon, or pardon me, noon until 1 o'clock Eastern Time, and then we do the second hour. So we're just getting into that second hour now. So glad to be hearing your voice.
Thank you. I'm so thankful. I mean, I am deriving so much from both of you, your input on the radio, and the quality of my life has increased. The more I do my inner work, it is directly related to the quality of my life. And I
pretty amazing, isn't
it? It is amazing. I mean, if I sit back and I expect someone to do it for me, there is no growth. But when I do my own inner work, it is all worth it. And I just called in real quickly because I'm sitting in an ophthalmologist's office. I am in charge of riding someone around who had an accident. And I just wanted to say how very pleased I am for your devotion and for Dr. Tim's devotion. Thank you both. And Jeannie.
Well, thank you for saying thank you. And I'll just share with the rest of the audience who perhaps doesn't know this, but you've shared it on the show before, so I'm not letting any secrets out of the bag. You're pretty much eminently qualified to make this statement, since you've been circling the Earth for a little better than 8 decades, if I understood correctly. You'd shared with us.
Absolutely.
So to have you saying that, to see the change and the improvement, and whatever stage somebody starts to do their work and clean up the past in the mind, it's, the sky's the limit. So I'm just delighted that we've had that kind of impact, that you've picked it up and done the work, and that we got to present it and make it available for you. That's just awesome, and thank you for saying thank you. That's awesome.
Yes, and all, for me and my journey, all it takes was willingness. Because when I first found out about you, I was given, there is this man, his name is Michael, call this number and he will help you. And I had no idea I was on the radio. I had not a clue of your background.
Oh, really?
That's correct. And all I did was have a willingness.
Well, that's definitely one of the big keys.
That's
The
it.
willingness, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So
And,
we are
and I
absolutely
still have
delighted to be
willingness.
on the team.
Thank you. And the best advertisement that I could be for the work is to be an example. And that speaks for itself. Thank you.
And isn't it bizarre that these tools, this work, this understanding has been around for 2,000 plus years, and yet it's still as scarce as hen's teeth in terms of people comprehending it and really being able to use it? It's mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, and there's this old saying, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear.
Well, we're delighted you were ready. We're delighted that we got to appear in your life, whoever it was that recommended you call this number, and that you start. And I'm thinking it's been, a little more than 2 years now for you? that you've been engaged in the work? Am I remembering that correctly?
It might possibly be. I have no idea. When I live one day at a time, I have no idea of the past because it's gone, and the future hasn't arrived.
I understand. People oftentimes say to me, well, Michael, what about last? It's like, I don't know, that might have been 10 years ago. Or somebody says, well, what was that you just said? It's like, well, that was so long ago. I mean, that was 45 seconds. So I can identify with that.
Yep. The only thing that counts is the present.
Yes. I'm with you. And isn't it an interesting name that they've given it, the present, that every instant is a gift if we are in our right minds and willing to receive it.
And I term it the eternal now.
Yes, I'm with you 100%. I am with you.
Okay, thank you
Sweet.
for everything.
All right, delighted to be sharing the earth with you and to be sharing these tools with you. Appreciation. All right. Well, now that's the kind of call that I'd love to get.
And you have another hand up?
Sure, that's the whole bottom line of doing this work is that of making it available. And our commitment, ultimately, is to make it available to literally every mind, heart, and being on the planet. So pass it on to someone. You know, you never know if you invite someone to pick up that phone and participate, or you give them the information about downloading the app or the website or whatever. You never know what kind of changes you're going to make in that person's life. I have a lady that comes to mind as I'm saying that, and I actually just spoke to this woman's husband just about 4 days ago. He came to mind, and I called him. It was someone I hadn't spoken to in a couple of decades, and I was looking to communicate with his wife, and found out that she had passed about 17 or 18 years ago. That had been how long it's been since I'd spoken to her. But she came to this work very early, like 40 years ago, maybe even a few years earlier than that. And I can remember her calling me in tears over a piece of work that she did around her father. And I don't even remember now the details of it, but her excitement over the fact that what she introduced to her father of this work and that he took it on literally saved his life. So she came in contact with the tools, passed it on to her father, and her call to me was just in delight and joy over my father would be dead if I hadn't shared this with him. So you never know what kind of change you're making in someone's life. Pass it on, please. And, you know, it's free. We've got hundreds of hours of recordings of the radio show with all the information, all the tools. We've got a 20,000-page website. We've got the world's only forgiveness app. It's all free. If you want to pay for it, you can also do that. We have, self-study. You can donate to support. But either way, the objective is to make it available. So pass it on to somebody. You never know who they're going to pass it on to, and whose life changes or is quite literally saved. So thank you for that call, Audrey. And Miss Jeannie, we've got somebody else to say hello to.
We do, and it's Sunny, 765. You're on the air.
Hello.
Welcome, young lady. How are you?
Doing good.
You've been passing it on and changing people's lives with it, haven't you?
Yes, doing the best we can, right? Yeah, getting
Cool.
it out there.
Hey.
Yeah. Well,
we can't do more than we can do.
Exactly, which is actually the subject of my question to you for myself today. I don't know. Yeah, it's for me. Yeah, exactly. Without too much story, there is a person, been a former roommate, 8 years, become very much part of me and my daughter's life. Saw him through a lot of good times and the bad, and changes in my life and his. He's now renting a room from my daughter. And this person, the observation by all, I mean, it just is. You can tell him and tell him and tell him, and nothing changes. We have seen him through some very dark days in his life without being that, if you want to term it, an enabler. The person, he's very opportunistic and has a lot of excuses as to why. And then cancer came up for him, which is how he got to go live with my daughter. And the world's financial changes, what that has looked like for many, depending on where you live and what have you. My 24-year-old daughter now has this 65-year-old man for a roommate. And I told him, I said, you know, I've been very gracious and patient with you. And things have changed for you, and you have more means than you once did. But you cannot. My daughter's counting on you. You've got to be timely and consistent. And this is temporary, very temporary. She's a young girl. She doesn't need a 65-year-old man hanging out in her life, right? But we'll get you through this. We will get you through this. We care for you. We'll get you through this. So now it's gone on to look a lot like how he squeezed about 7 years out of hanging out with me. And it's like my daughter needs a roommate, yes, that is capable of saying far more than she does. So it's coming down to about 3 months now of more excuses. And it's like, for me to assert the situation looks a lot like I fall from grace and from my center, and I have to protect my daughter in this. And it's what I'm noting is, though I'm pretty solid with it, I started feeling this in my neck and shoulders, and that has been an issue.
I was just going to ask, what's happening with your breath?
Yeah, and it's like, it's not even about rage and anger for me, Michael.
Okay, so now we know it's about rage and anger. All right, good work.
Well, you know, I knew you would do that. It's not.
Well, let's hope. Let's stop for a minute. Let's just hold there for a second.
She's right here in a piece of paper.
So let's listen for just a moment. As Shakespeare says, my words fly up, my thoughts remain below. And if you were in a settled, centered space of your human life as love around this situation, you would say to me, well, I'm in a pretty centered, settled space of love with this, and I want to support my daughter. But I'll just invite you to notice that's not what you said. Your words relayed to your conscious awareness what you're in denial of and what this is about for you. What's your work to do around this would be my offering from listening to your words about, what were the words, rage and anger?
Maybe, yeah. I mean, I said that, and it's like where my head has gone, and with Jeannie in mind, with Louise Hay concepts, shouldering his responsibilities. And that's where I don't know what you would call it. It's insanity at this point. As I said, it's not about enabling this person. It looks like that someone has got to assert.
So you've been enabling him?
Apparently, because he keeps taking advantage of no matter who it is. As long as you put up with it, he'll keep doing it. And how do you help that person who's done everything to be kind, compassionate, understanding? I let him live here for a year for nothing. And, he didn't have a job. The man is 65 years old, and he is back to working 3 days a week, and he has his retirement income. So now there are fewer excuses for him to leave my presence and go on and treat my daughter this way. My daughter's phone was turned off yesterday because of his failure to pay the rent on the first, and she has house payments, car payments, student loans. But we care for him. She looks at him like an uncle, basically, at this point, and she will not see herself in this. So it's like, okay, you also want to take advantage of my daughter's, respecting her elders and not knowing how, her vulnerability, but she needs nothing from anyone badly enough to tolerate this. She can't, obviously. Her phone's been turned off, and she's a young girl, and she is type 1 diabetic. She ought to have her phone available to her. But I'm like,
notice,
okay, story.
when an event happens, and we turn away from that event, and we have a conversation about the event, there are two perspectives from which to have that conversation.
Yeah.
One of them is, if I get the feedback from my own mouth, and then somebody makes me aware of the feedback, that this is about my anger and my rage, I go into a conversation with myself about, what am I going to do about my anger and my rage? That's one perspective. That means I have left my membership card and my devotion to the one world universal religion of blame behind, and I have a conversation with myself about what I'm going to do about this anger and rage. The other perspective is, I can just go right on and keep having a conversation about them like they're the cause of what's moving inside of me. And remember, that's our definition of denial. What is denial? When I think or speak as though something outside of me is the cause of what's moving inside of me. So it sounds like there are two things to be done. One, it sounds like this is an opportunity knocking on your door to look once again at your anger and rage and work through it, have a conversation with yourself about that and clean that up. And two, from a space of connected love, to be able to communicate clearly and honestly about the situation at hand, which sounds like, there needs to be some communication with him. So, do you want to solve the problem? This might be a good time to re-listen to the workshop. And I think the first time I did this workshop was actually, I think you were there. This is a couple decades ago up in near Indianapolis there at Lady Jane's Center. I did communication. Did you hear what I think I said? And I think you were at the first workshop that I did, the first live workshop of that one. So I'd suggest reviewing that and looking at some responsibility communication with him that
has been done.
Supports you in healing what you need to heal and holding him accountable for his behavior.
Right, and that's where this is. I thought it would be very good for everyone to hear. It's like, yeah, here I am. This is one of those where it feels like you're at an impasse, where you have approached it from every level. And he's pretty aware of your work and who I am as a person by now. And it's like when it reaches that of where it hits you right square and the limitations, I've had enough. And this is not happening again. So I've got to look at that, yes. And at the same time, I've discovered for myself that in his presence in my home all this time, I went through all of this stuff with my shoulders and my arms. And it's this shouldering responsibility on that level of where I know Jeannie is very familiar, I know you are as well, but the shouldering of another person's responsibilities, but at the same time, it's like, here we are, right? So I don't even know what I'm asking at this point, except for it's heartstrings too.
Let me call back your language a little bit again. So I'll ask another question.
Okay.
How does it look like your life to find yourself at an impasse? In other words, how many times in your life have you felt like you're at an impasse?
Not many.
Are you breathing?
Yes, and I'm writing.
I suspect from what you're saying that perhaps there have been more impasses than you have owned or are admitting to yourself. And I just invite you to take a look there, maybe do a worksheet or two around impasse and just see how many times, were there times in your life as a kid where there was an impasse, perhaps with a power person? Is this person, does he keep coming around with this energy in order to give you the gift of looking at feeling powerless, perhaps helpless, hopeless, impasse, nothing I can do? Does any of that resonate for you?
Oh, no, because I believe each person ought to own their stuff, and that is what oftentimes I will be very courteous that other people have not got the memo. They've never met you, Michael. And it's like, okay, you're entitled to that. And I've processed this in every way that I can. And yes, this is a gift. That it's like, okay, yeah, I still can lose my composure and come down to my bottom line. Something has got to change here. I have changed my thinking, my feeling, my thoughts, and compassionate, understanding every 62 ways till Sunday. And the only thing that would come down to it in reflection in myself and that part of my daughter that is me is the way this comes down to making someone feel guilty or responsible for their responsibilities. And it's just a very difficult situation.
So was that a game your power person used to do with you when they wanted to hold you accountable for something? Would they use guilt tripping?
More than likely. I'm writing that down. Take a closer look at this. But I see it now, thanks to you. I see it, you and Reverend Jane and all my other teachers in my life. It's like I'm seeing this whole process play out and lending myself to it and being responsible for myself and my observations, my thoughts, my feelings. But like I said, the big thing, the reason that I called in this instance is, wow, I feel this in my arms, neck, and shoulders, and it's been years but I've been doing very well in his absence until this came about, of where I see him playing it out, and my daughter is now being adversely affected by this. And I'm like, okay, now, I'm just going to say I'm pissed. I've had enough, or whatever that looks like, or however we communicate as humans. This is ridiculous.
So now that you acknowledge you're pissed, let's look at what pissed is. What is it that this being pissed is about?
Well, I use the word opportunistic, being taken advantage of. I'm writing it down.
So how often in your relationship with your power person did you experience being taken advantage of?
My power person or persons looks different for me because I was raised by multiple parentage. So that I have to give thought and pause to that, after. So
So that would be a good question to ask yourself.
Yeah, I'm taking many notes here. Saying which one it was.
And then recognize that this anger, the word you used for it was pissed, that you've never been angry about anything in your life. But there's anger in you.
Yes.
And when there's anger in us and we live in denial, we wait until somebody comes along that frustrates the goal we have for them, that won't fulfill the goal we hold for them, and then we use that very anger to build our brain's image of them. And they show up in our mind with our problem attached, and we walk away having a conversation about them. Well, if only they, and look at what they, and then 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 they. And that, for most people, goes on their whole lives. My invitation would be to put an end to the conversation about they, or him in this case, and start having a conversation with you about your anger. And remember that anger is not, as most people portray it, an emotion. Anger is a drug. Anger is an internally produced anesthetic that anesthetizes against pain. So what's the pain that's the conversation I'd invite you to have about yourself? Remember, this is about, when we get into the responsibility communication process, there's the problem solving, which everybody wants to problem. Oh, we have a problem, let's solve the problem. And the reason we have a problem is because there's something unhealed in us, and nobody wants to do the healing work. Everybody wants to solve the problem. But so my invitation would be from here forward that you have a very long conversation with yourself about what you're anesthetizing with this anger. And every time your mind comes into thinking about him, recognize that your mind's going back into denial and blaming him for what's moving in you. And that's our very definition of denial. So whenever I think or speak as though something outside of me is the cause of what's moving inside of me, I have to hide the truth of what's moving inside of me. And that's why when these things surface, most people don't have conversations with themselves about themselves, because they're hiding what it is that they have the story to tell themselves that they're angry because of that. You're not angry because of that. You're angry because there's anger in you. Do your healing first. And what often happens, yes, we all want to solve all of the problems in our lives, and I hear it. It's a big problem with your daughter, and she's being taken advantage of, which would probably indicate there's some power person dynamics of being taken advantage of by your power person. But oftentimes when, and this is over the years, when, let's say, for instance, in an intensive, we have someone who does the responsibility communication, and they're willing to be guided through the process. By the time they finish the process, the problem has taken care of itself. It's gone. It's literally disappeared.
Yes, I've seen it many, many, many times. And I felt it. And that's why it surprises me, and then I don't like it.
What is it that surprises you?
When something can push me that far, like this. And it's like, okay, there's still something in there. I own that.
So notice you're still having a conversation about this thing out here, rather than conversation about what's in here.
Within.
The only reason anything can push you that far is because it's there to be pushed.
There's no doubt.
That's the only reason anything can push you that far.
In my generations, the alcoholism in my generations, I would get that. And so I'm so proud through a lot of their stuff. Well, yeah. And it's like, okay,
Yeah,
so I
that's
know
major.
that's still in there, and this is a lifetime journey. I get that. And then I'm very aware of I don't like that drugged feeling. I don't like it. It's not that I'm all into it. I don't like it. It's like a bad buzz, if you will. There's no escaping it until it's over, right? Till you just, the energies move through, you've processed it. And so I get that. And very profound that I felt it in this shouldering another's responsibility somehow. And it's like, which is also very profound in any level of teaching that I've ever thought I was going to be about. It's not shouldering other people's stuff. So it's kind of profound for me at the same time, Michael. Oh.
So what's the energy that you're carrying in your neck and your shoulders that you need to forgive? Can you talk about that without saying a word about him or your daughter? What's happening with your breath right now?
I'm actually breathing through it.
Good.
And so
Good catch.
Scanning. Unless I have my mind convinced it's about responsibility. And that is the key word, operative word in the story, is responsibility.
Mm. And breathe.
So you can hear me.
So what is it that you need to take responsibility for? So when you first started that sound you just made, I wasn't sure whether you were dropping into laughter or into tears.
Laughter. It does a little more story in this. When my daughter expresses her thoughts and feelings about this experience, it's like, well, it was your idea, Mom. So yes, responsibility. The
being blamed.
Kind of, maybe, yeah. And being responsible and offered options.
Breathing with you.
I am, yes.
So if you just let everything in your shoulders and your neck soften, take your awareness there. What is it that you're holding in your neck that you need to let loose of?
There are some tears behind it.
And if you inquire as to what your mind believes that tears are about, what story do you get?
It's just, you can do everything. I just feel like I've done everything to help. And the help, it just looks like they're in need of more help. I don't know. And that's where I resort to the anger or the asserting the situation in a way that maybe they'll understand. I don't know if it's about ending relationships, because I don't enjoy that at all. And to have to take legal action.
So, So you enjoy ending relationships?
I do not. I do, seriously, with the regulatory speech pattern there, I think ahead many times, and it's like I know that would be the reaction of a lot of people, and that's not where I want to go with this. It's not as, yes, it is a thought apparently, only in consideration from a teaching standpoint or what have you, that I make those observations sometimes, Michael. And it's like, yeah, we want to maintain our friendship, and we love him, we care for him, and after every avenue of approach, it's not referring back to him. I'm finding in within myself this, again, back to this, how we've loved him, been kind, generous. I don't know what to do here. And, you know, you're not a free information booth or a psychic. But it's like, where am I in this at this point? And I felt it in my shoulders and my neck. And so I may have to mute my phone if my dog likes here.
I didn't understand that. You may have to mute your phone if
Brent's coming in the door and my dog will get excited.
Ah, okay. So if you just breathe deeply and pay attention throughout your whole body, is there anywhere else that you're feeling any untoward energy?
I do have a left hip that is part of the other things that I've been working through. And I, other than joy in your hips, as I believe that is another analogy.
So breathe into the hip and ask to be shown what's stored there. If you go into the space that you're aware of in your hip, does it have a particular shape? Does it have a particular color? If you ask it to tell you what it's doing there, what's going on, do you get an answer?
I believe, too, this is a generational thing, and it's definitely connected to female on equally the left side of the body, and my daughter, it's there for her as well. Knowing my mother and grandmother's story.
Hmm.
Other worksheets, notes.
So why don't you ask that space if it has anything else to share with you? Like really just gently breathing and inviting its voice to communicate with you.
Just stand up and attempting to do that reverts back to the, you know, the habit, if you will, and or whatever is in the DNA, right?
So how about a MindShifter?
Yes, please.
How about a MindShifter? The stronger
Okay.
the stronger and more powerfully I stand up for myself. the easier it is for me to stay connected to love.
Thank you.
And to gather support for my cause. What happens with your breath?
It's softening and taking me back to the past few MindShifters over the past couple of months that you have very graciously shared with me. Thank you so much. They're all interconnected. Thank you, thank you.
Well, let's just you maybe take all of these conversations in the MindShifter and see what it is that needs to surface for you. What is it needs to be forgiven? And it won't surprise me in the least if once you do that, that whole circumstance around your daughter's going to resolve itself.
Yeah. A lot of it was like automatic pilot for my child, you know, and very sadly difficult. And thank you.
Breathing with you and holding the space.
Yes, thank you.
And I look forward to the next installment, to hearing what surfaces for you as you work on that MindShifter. And when you bring up the fact that you suspect there's a genetic component to this, and you refer to your mother and your grandmother's stories, I would suggest that you maybe set aside an afternoon, like 3 or 4 hours, to just work on that MindShifter and the related worksheets, and see, as you cultivate an inner listening, what it is that surfaces for you.
Yes, the last few MindShifters that you gave me, Michael, there was a space in my chest, and I had a very powerful dream of mother, grandmother, and foster mother, and that is gone. That has been removed from my tissue, and it's, as I say, you know, it is our genetics, our DNA, our ancestral inheritance. And then there's, something out there in the world will invite you to go back inside and figure out, you know, look at what's going on, and keeps going on and on and on if we don't clean up. So I got you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And remember that we're never going to make the suggestion or invite you to figure anything out. Figuring it out is a booby prize. It is the number one pseudo solution of the non-being mind. You can, I promise you, with all the dynamics, you know, when you look at just what we've talked about in the last few minutes, what's involved for you, you've gone to genetics, you've gone to power person, you've gone to childhood, you've gone to grandmother and mother. So let's just take those energetic patterns that you bring to the fray, and then let's bring what your daughter brings to the fray, and then let's bring what this gentleman brings to the fray. Who is ever going to figure out how all those energetic patterns interact to bring this circumstance about? But that's what the non-being mind wants to do, is figure it out. And that's why in the codependence to interdependence intensive that we do, that's the number one pseudo solution that we offer of the non-being mind, and that is, if I could just figure this out. And my offering is, you will never in the next million years figure it out. But at the instant you choose to, you can forgive it and be finished with it. That's where the worksheet comes in.
Yes,
And I just,
I don't know.
when I give out a MindShifter like this, I keep a record of them. And the MindShifter just above this, interestingly enough, it's just where I open to save this one. There's another MindShifter that might be useful at this point. So if you've got your pen, let's plug this one in and see what happens.
Okay. Is this one from record of what you've given repeated, or is this a new one yet?
This is a new one. At least now, I might not recall. This may be one that I gave to you in the past. I don't know. I don't necessarily record who I give them to. I just keep a record of the MindShifters that I use. So, and you know, where I plug this one in that I just gave you, the one right above it, seems like it might be relative, and there's a reason why it's here. So, if you want to just jot it down, it's safe and healing. It's safe and healing for me to confront every issue that I have in my relationships with men.
Exactly. Okay, it's safe and healing for me to
confront every issue I have in my relationships with men. What's happening with your breath?
moving it here. It's safe and I'm trying to see to read too. Confront every issue I have in
my relationships with men.
And that
are you breathing?
Is that yes. And then emulated. That is very conducive. In a multifaceted way is very conducive. Oh. Yes.
Well, breathing with you and holding the space.
Thank you. Thank you. And when we say
that
relationship with men, just maybe for listeners, and for myself as well, and for your confirmation, Michael, this doesn't always mean like male-female relationships where my relationships with men, but with male people, just anyone you interact with, including the mailman. If a man carries an energy that is, I got it. I just wanted to maybe clarify that.
Cool.
Thank you. Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you.
All right. Well, there's an old joke about the mailman, so who knows why that came in.
Yes. No, it is. It's a little tougher after so many years of this, and it's like, okay, is this mine, or where did this come from? I think I'm doing okay, but if it's generational stuff that comes back up, it's okay. You've helped me really, and thank you for my generations. Thank you, because I do see that it has brought me back to, my sweet mother and my grandmother, who, been there. Thank you so much for setting us free, and my daughter, and any grandchildren that may ever be. Thank you.
Yay! I'll join you in that for sure. Passing it along. Have you introduced your daughter to worksheets?
She's actually been to your codependence to interdependence workshop when she was either 11 or 13, somewhere around in there. I found some of her worksheets that she did with you.
Sweet.
Like 2014 or something like that.
It's amazing how time flies, isn't it?
Yes. Yes. So much love, Michael.
Well, holding the space for the energy to open for you specifically within your family system for the sake of your mother and your grandmother and your daughter and all females in both directions within your family system and within every family system on the planet. This dynamic of abuse with women, this dynamic of lowering the status of women. It's time for this to be healed on the earth. It's interesting that, just a few years ago, politically in this country, laws were passed that created a whole new level of protection for women from predators within their own households. And that in the last administration in this country, those laws were taken off the books. I mean, it's just like so bizarre. We made that advance, and then literally the last administration removed those protections from women. And it's just mind-boggling that, we made that advance and then they were removed. It's just so bizarre. So joining for the sake of all of humanity and humanity, if we were to say that, because, the oppressor is just as oppressed as those who are oppressed. And it's time for us all to heal. So joining you in holding the space for that within your family system, and that the fact that you're willing to bring that piece of healing to earth opens a space for every other person to build on your willingness and take it to the next level. So holding the space for that.
I appreciate you, Michael, and I love the example of the regulatory speech dynamic in our interaction here, as well as the generational piece and how that banging around in my DNA would have attracted this person to stimulate this without too much story. But his former roommate was a woman on a fixed income, and his energy is recovering from a 25-year marriage and divorce with 5 children. So I'm seeing his pattern, and I see the dynamic where my mother and grandmother were very vulnerable. I stand up. I do. At the same time, I got you. Thank you so much.
All right. Holding you in a blessing. Everybody, thank you for joining us, and create the best year yet of your eternal life. It is an awesome